All right. Good evening. Hello. Welcome to the regularly scheduled session of the school committee, April 6, 2023. We are here for a somewhat lengthy agenda, so we'll get right into it. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:04. All right, so we're going to have our public hearing on the budget, and we need to do a roll call vote to open the hearing and then a roll call vote to close the hearing. So
Do you want a motion to open?
I would like a motion, please.
Moved by Stacy.
Second.
Moved by Stacy, second by Amanda. All in favor, Ms. Zaborski? Ms. Raffi?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Sebnick?
Yes.
Ms. Bigelow?
Yes.
Ms. Gupta?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Okay. All right, so budget subcommittee. Do you need a second to?
Are we presenting on budget subcommittee first?
No, I just didn't know if you had it, because this is the budget hearing, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything before we started, or?
No, I think we should probably open it up. I mean, are you going to go over sort of, do we have a sign-up sheet? Do we have a number of people who are speaking, or we haven't done?
For the hearing, we don't need a
Okay.
sign-up sheet. The
Right.
hearing, we get their name and address.
Okay.
So,
Like at town hall, like at a town meeting, they just come and they say their name and then where they live, and then we keep track of it that way.
Okay. No, I think you should just get started.
Okay. Is anybody here to talk about the budget? Nobody has anything to say about the budget?
Make good points.
Okay.
Motion closed.
Move to close the budget hearing.
Second.
Moved by Stacy. Second by Cynthia. All in favor? Ms. Skorsky? Ms. Raffi?
Yes.
Ms. Sebnick?
Yes.
Ms. Bigelow?
Yes.
Ms. Gupta?
Yes.
Myself, yes. All right. So we will move on to our regular session and our consent agenda. All items are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the committee so requests, in which event the item will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or edits for anything that's on the consent agenda? Cynthia?
I wanted to make sure that it's not in there yet. So our SOI, the language for the SOI must be reflected in the minutes. Is it in there now? Because she said that Peggy said that it was not in there, that either you or Catherine had the language that she needed.
Okay.
So I'd like us to hold off on them because they have to be approved and be submitted along with the SOI with the language included, and it's not on the
All right,
minutes.
so we'll hold those.
Is it something we can amend and add in during this meeting?
If somebody has them, but I don't know that anybody has.
Well,
We can get the language. I think you should approve it, just because it has to be approved before next Friday.
Yeah.
We're not
Okay,
meeting
all
on
right,
it.
so
I can
let's,
find them from
Yeah,
the
we can-
presentation.
can we just make sure that it's in then?
Or the website is on that.
All right, because it's due next week.
Right.
So we have time.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, anything else on the consent agenda? No? Okay. I would entertain a motion.
Moved by Amanda.
So you have to make the motion.
I move to accept the contents of the consent agenda.
Second by Dawn?
Moved by Amanda, second by John. All in favor? Great, thank you. Okay. We do not have any presentations tonight. It's the second meeting in a row. No presentations. So we're going to go on to policy, which I think is going to be,
Imagine communications first.
we can if you want.
It doesn't matter to me.
It's, I have policy next on the,
The
We
regular.
have communications first.
Afterwards.
oh, it's not here.
Oh,
No, it's right.
Oh, there it is, okay.
I just didn't know if we wanted to hear from our students
Right.
first,
Right,
if
right,
we
right.
wanted to table the rest of us, but the
Right.
students here.
Students.
Hi, it's so nice to see you.
Hi. Okay, so first we have that today was the last day to buy prom tickets. They were $75 for juniors and all out-of-town guests, and then $40 for seniors who didn't buy a ticket last year, and then they were free to all the seniors who didn't get a refund. And then, and then the cabaret for all like students who are singing there. They have songs from musicals. That's next Tuesday, April 11th at 7 here at the high school. And then DECA has 11 students going to Florida for the national competition over April
Wow.
vacation. And the Special Olympics is in Ashland next Friday, and we'll have a little like send-off parade for all the students in the morning.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
We had our Jack Quinley basketball tournament, and it was a huge success. There were 34 teams of 3 students each, and all the money raised went towards the Jack Quinley Scholarship, and they raised well over $1,000. The senior activity schedule was just released to all parents earlier this week. April 25th, Janet Applefield, who is a Holocaust survivor, is speaking to sophomores and juniors during an extended DSB. The Senior Red Sox game is on April 14th, which is not a school-sponsored event, but it's going to be a ton of fun, so we hope everyone comes. And student advisory leader interviews have just begun for next year, and current sophomores can apply to have the position for their junior year. That's all we have.
Great.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. All right, individual comments?
All right, let me think. So yesterday was paraprofessional day, so the PTO brought some snacks and goodies.
Can you speak up a little bit, Stacey?
So the PTO brought all snacks and goodies to all 4 buildings for all the paraprofessionals. We hope they enjoyed that. And spring sports have started, and we've been having fun, you know, sitting outside, finally enjoying those games. I think that was on. Oops, sorry.
Anyone else? I just want to say a thank you and a thumbs up to the 4th grade Miller Spring Open House. It was absolutely adorable, and it's so amazing to be back in groups to see things like our kids singing on the stage again. So, yeah, so that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Anyone else? All right.
Actually, we had office hours.
Yes.
We had our last of the budget related office hours last Wednesday. Dawn, me, and Catherine were there. We were on Zoom, and we had an awesome turnout. We probably had 30-something, 34 people.
That's nice.
We got to hear all kinds of things and comment. It's always nice to talk with folks about all kinds of things. So I'd say it was a success.
Excellent.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so opportunity for public comment. Jamie Catone, you're the only one that signed up.
Yeah.
I assume you're the only one that wants to speak. If there is anyone else who wants to speak, they just have to identify themselves separately. But you have the floor.
Okay, from here?
You know, if you wouldn't mind coming up here, just so the microphone can get you for the TV.
Thank you. So my name's Jamie Catone. I am a teacher at the high school. I am also a town resident. I am a parent of kids at Placentino and Miller, and I'm also the HFT president. Tonight I am here on behalf of 95% of the Holliston High School staff in response to the district's posting for a high school principal. The district has experienced unprecedented turnover, and we are in desperate need of a plan to address the retention crisis. We have had 214 new staff in the past 2.5 years out of 375 positions approximately. Any change to building leadership at the high school will lead to further instability and could diminish student outcomes, decrease staff morale, and take years to return to making effective progress. Holliston High School is a safe space for educators to take risks, be innovative, prioritize student agency, and to collaborate with colleagues in meaningful ways. To continue the momentum and trajectory of the high school's vision, 95% of the staff members at Holliston High School are formally requesting that Principal Nicole Bottomley be offered a successor contract as principal. We hope that you will value the input of your high school staff members by considering this request and establishing a plan to address the concerns around the high amount of attrition within our schools. Thank you.
always feel so weird after public comment because it's your opportunity to comment and it's not on our agenda, so we're not supposed to have dialogue about this. So I just feel so weird being like, okay, great, thank you, but thank you, and we will certainly take your words into consideration.
Thank you. We do understand it's not an opportunity.
I know. I like to say it because sometimes people are watching at home and they're like, why didn't they say anything? So I like to try to make sure that people know that we're not allowed to. Thanks. Okay, so now we don't have any presentations, and now we can go to policy, which, as I understand, might require water breaks.
It might, but hopefully not. I don't know if I can get stuff up. Keith, can you do people need to have this stuff up on the screen? Does it really matter?
I have it right here.
I don't have control.
Of that. I don't need to, I don't want really to have to do that, but like, it's just easier to put it up.
How hard is it to put it up?
Joni, stop.
No.
Stop.
Yeah.
Let the experts
Hands off.
touch it.
Hands up.
Joni. I'm sorry, I just assumed that you'd have one like kind of already ready for something else, so I just didn't even think about. Okay, well, while he does that, I'll just talk for a second. So many of you might know that Massachusetts laws around student discipline changed significantly in the last year or so, and we got some guidance from MASC just this past year about having to do a pretty large overhaul of our student discipline policy, which is called actually expected conduct, but it needs to be called student discipline. So we took MASC's guidance policy. We basically are just kind of making a whole shift. So I feel like we're going to read it through this one time, but we don't have to vote on it tonight because I know that people might have questions. It's a lot to kind of digest. But I would like us to consider voting on it at our next meeting, but we don't have to vote on it tonight if people still have questions or concerns about the policy, which obviously they can do with any of the policies, but it's just this one in particular because it's so long and it is a huge change that we just sort of like went, let's just wholesale get rid of what our old policy was, which was really tiny, and this one is much more detailed. And we had this reviewed by our District Council for Special Education, Katie Minalt, as well as Jess Beatty, Jeriel Vernay, Joni Menard, like pretty much the whole central office team took a look through this to make sure there wasn't anything missing. And, we added on, because of some of Jeriel's comments specifically, were some definitions at the bottom, which were not in the guidance policy, but we did add those. And because, now that we have it up, Ms. Bigelow is way faster at reading than I am. I'm going to ask her to read. She could do those commercials, cars, yeah. So she's going to read through the entire policy. I know that we're not really required to because we already have this policy and this is a change, but it's a big change, so I just want us to read through the whole thing. And then if we have questions, we can go over those and then we'll go from there. So bear with us. Thank you.
Okay, so
Yay.
this is policy JIC, student discipline. The school committee believes that all students deserve every opportunity to achieve academic success in a safe, secure learning environment. Good citizenship in schools is based on respect and consideration for the rights of others. Students will be expected to conduct themselves in a way that the rights and privileges of others are not violated. They will be required to respect constituted authority, to conform to school rules and to those provisions of the law that apply to their conduct. Each principal shall include prohibited actions in the student handbook or other publication to be made available to students and parents/guardians. Principals and staff shall not use academic punishment of any form of consequence to inappropriate behaviors or actions by students. The principal may, as a disciplinary measure, remove a student from privileges such as extracurricular activities and attendance at school-sponsored events based on the student's misconduct. Such a removal is not subject to the remainder of this policy, law, or regulation. The superintendent shall provide each principal with a copy of the regulations promulgated by DESE and shall have each principal sign a document acknowledging receipt thereof, which shall be placed in their personal file. Suspension. In every case of student misconduct for which suspension may be imposed, except for offenses referenced in the note at the end of this policy, a principal or designee shall consider ways to re-engage the student in the learning process. Students shall not be suspended or expelled from school until alternative remedies have been employed and their use and results documented. Alternative remedies may include, but may not be limited to, mediation, conflict resolution, restorative justice, and collaborative problem solving. The principal or designee may determine that suspension is the only appropriate consequence in the following situations. 1, when the specific reasons are documented as to why such alternative remedies are unsuitable or counterproductive. And 2, when the student's continued presence in school would pose a specific documentable concern about the infliction of serious bodily injury or other serious harm upon a person while at school. Notice of suspension. Except for emergency removal or an in-school suspension of less than 10 days, a principal must provide the student and the parent or guardian oral and written notice and provide the student an opportunity for a hearing and the parent, guardian an opportunity to participate in such hearing before imposing suspension as a consequence for misconduct. The principal shall provide both oral and written notice to student and parent, guardian in English and in the primary language of the home if other than English. The notice shall include the rights enumerated in the law and regulation. To conduct a hearing without a parent, guardian present, the principal must be able to document reasonable efforts to include the parent, guardian. Emergency removal. The principal may remove a student from school temporarily when a student is charged with a disciplinary offense and has determined that one or more of the following applies. The student's continued presence in school proposes a specific documentable concern about the infliction of serious bodily injury or other serious harm upon another person while at school. Or 2, the student's continued presence in the school materially and substantially disrupts the order of the school, and in the principal's judgment, alternative remedies are unsuitable or counterproductive. The temporary removal shall not exceed 2 school days following the day of the emergency removal, during which time the principal shall make immediate and reasonable efforts to orally notify the student and the student's parent or guardian of the emergency removal, the reason for the need for emergency removal, and the other matters required in the notice as referenced in the applicable regulation. Provide written notice to the student and parent guardian as required above. Provide the student an opportunity for a hearing with the principal that complies with applicable regulations, and the parent guardian an opportunity to attend the hearing before the expiration of the 2 school days, unless an extension of time for hearing is otherwise agreed to by the principal, student, and parent guardian. Render a decision orally on the same day as the hearing and in writing no later than the following school day, which meets the requirements of applicable law and regulation. A principal shall also ensure adequate provisions have been made for the student's safety and transportation prior to removal. In-school suspension, not more than 10 days consecutively or cumulatively. The principal may use in-school suspension as an alternative to short-term suspension for disciplinary offenses. The principal may impose an in-school suspension for a disciplinary offense under this provision, provided that the principal follows the process set forth in regulation and the student has the opportunity to make academic progress as required by law and regulation. Principal's hearing, short-term suspension of up to 10 days. The hearing with the principal shall be to hear and consider information regarding the alleged incident for which the student may be suspended, provide the student an opportunity to dispute the charges and explain the circumstances surrounding the alleged incident, determine if the student committed the disciplinary offense, and if so, the consequences for the infraction. At minimum, the principal shall, sorry, I lost my place. At minimum, the principal shall discuss the disciplinary offense, the basis for the charge, and any other pertinent information. The student shall also have an opportunity to present information, including mitigating facts, that the principal should consider in determining whether alternative remedies and consequences may be appropriate as set forth in law and regulation. The principal shall provide the parent guardian, if present, an opportunity to discuss the student's conduct and offer information, including mitigating circumstances, that the principal should consider in determining consequences for the student. The principal shall, based on the available information, including mitigating circumstances, determine whether the student committed the disciplinary offense, and if so, what remedy or consequence will be imposed. The principal shall notify the student and the parent guardian of the determination and the reasons for it. And if the student is suspended, the type and duration of suspension and the opportunity to make assignments up and other such schoolwork as needed to make academic progress during the period of removal as required by law and regulation. The determination shall be in writing and may be in the form of an update to the original written notice. If the student is in a public preschool program or in grades K through 3, the principal shall send a copy of the written determination. Hold on. Sorry. Written determination. There we go. Yep. To the superintendent, explain the reasons for imposing an out-of-school suspension before the long-term suspension takes effect. Principal's hearing. Long-term suspension of more than 10 days but less than 90 days, consecutive or cumulative. The hearing with the principal shall be to hear and consider information regarding the alleged incident for which the student may be suspended, provide the student an opportunity to dispute the charges and explain the circumstances surrounding the alleged incident, determine if the student committed the disciplinary offense, and if so, the consequences for the infraction. At a minimum, yes, please.
Too far. So at the end of that last sentence, you said before the long-term suspension takes effect, but it says short-term. Is it supposed to say, like, is this the transition sentence into the principal's hearing long-term? Do you know what I'm saying? like right here, it says short-term, but you said long-term when
When I read it?
you read it, and I didn't know if you meant to say long-term.
I
'cause,
think
like,
I meant
that-
to say short-term.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just made a mistake reading.
I just didn't know if that was like the, no, it's okay. I just didn't know if it was like the lead-in into the next. Okay.
No, that whole paragraph
Right.
about short-term
Yeah.
suspension, so that wouldn't have been appropriate there.
Okay.
Thank you. So now this is about long-term suspension.
Okay.
So which is 10 to 90 days. At minimum, in addition to the rights afforded a student in in addition to the short-term suspension rights, the student shall have the following rights. In advance of the hearing, the opportunity to review the student's record and have the documents upon which the principal may rely in making a determination to suspend the student or not. The right to be represented by counsel or a layperson of the student's choice at the student's parents' guardian's expense. The right to produce witnesses on his or her behalf and present the student's explanation of the alleged incident, but the student may not be compelled to do so. The right to cross-examine witnesses presented by the school district. The right to request that the hearing be recorded by the principal and to receive a copy of the audio recording upon request. If the student or parent guardian requests an audio recording, the principal shall inform all participants before the hearing that an audio record will be made and a copy will be provided to the student and the parent guardian upon request. The principal shall provide the parent guardian, if present, an opportunity to discuss the student's conduct and offer information, including mitigating circumstances, that the principal should consider in determining consequences for the student. The principal shall, based on evidence, determine whether the student committed the disciplinary offense, and if so, after considering mitigating circumstances and alternatives to suspension as required by law and regulation, what remedy or consequence will be imposed in place of or in addition to a long-term suspension. The principal shall send the written determination to the student and parent guardian by hand delivery, certified mail, first-class mail, email to an address provided by the parent guardian for school communications, or any other method of delivery agreed to by the principal and the parent guardian. If the principal decides to suspend the student, the written documentation shall identify the disciplinary offense, the date on which the hearing took place, and the participants at the hearing, set out the key facts and conclusions reached by the principal, identify the length and effective date of the suspension, as well as a date of return to school, include notice of the student's opportunity to receive education services to make academic programs during the period of removal from school as required by law and regulation, inform the student of the right to appeal the principal's decision to the superintendent or designee, but only if the principal has imposed a long-term suspension. Notice of the right of appeal shall be in English, in the primary language of the home if other than English, or other means of communication where appropriate, shall include the following information. The process for appealing the decision, including that the student or parent guardian must file a written notice of appeal with the superintendent within 5 calendar days of the effective date of the long-term suspension, provided that within 5 calendar days the student or parent guardian may request and receive from the superintendent an extension of time for filing the written notice for up to 7 additional calendar days, and that the long-term suspension will remain in effect unless and until the superintendent decides to reverse the principal's determination on appeal. If the student's in a public preschool program or in grades K through 3, the principal shall send a copy of the written determination to the superintendent and explain the reasons for imposing an out-of-school suspension before the suspension takes effect. Do we want to pause for comments on that point or just keep going with the whole thing? Whole thing? Okay. Superintendent's hearing.
Unless you want a drink.
Take a drink. Take a
Take a sip.
Superintendent's hearing. So this is for the appeal. A student who is placed on long-term suspension following a hearing with the principal shall have a right to appeal the principal's decision to the superintendent. The student or parent guardian shall file a notice of appeal with the superintendent within the time period noted above. See principal's hearing, suspension of more than 10 days. If the appeal is not timely filed, the superintendent may deny the appeal or may allow the appeal in his or her discretion for good cause. The superintendent shall hold the hearing within 3 school days of the student's request unless the student or the parent guardian requests an extension of up to 7 additional calendar days, in which case the superintendent shall grant the extension. The superintendent shall make a good faith effort to include the parent guardian in the hearing. The superintendent shall be presumed to have made a good faith effort if he or she has made efforts to find a day and time for the hearing that would allow the parent guardian and the superintendent to participate. The superintendent shall send written notice to the parent guardian of the date, time, and location of the hearing. The superintendent shall conduct a hearing to determine whether the student committed the disciplinary offense of which the student is accused, and if so, what the consequence shall be. The superintendent shall arrange for an audio recording of the hearing, a copy of which shall be provided to the student or parent guardian upon request. The superintendent shall inform all participants before the hearing that an audio recording will be made of the hearing, and a copy will be provided to the student and parent guardian upon request. The student shall have all of the rights afforded to the student at the principal's hearing for long-term suspension. Superintendent shall issue a written decision within 5 calendar days of the hearing, which meets the requirements of the law and regulation. If their superintendent determines that the student committed the disciplinary offense, the superintendent may impose the same or a lesser consequence than the principal, but shall not impose a suspension greater than that imposed by the principal's decision. The decision of the superintendent shall be the final decision of the school district with regard to the suspension. Expulsion. Expulsion is defined as the removal of a student from school for more than 90 school days, indefinitely or permanently, as allowed by law for possession of a dangerous weapon, possession of a controlled substance, assault on a member of the educational staff, or a felony charge or felony delinquency complaint or conviction, or adjudication or admission of guilt with respect to such felony, if a principal determines that the student's continued presence in school would have a substantial detrimental effect on the general welfare of the school. Any student expelled from school for such an offense shall be afforded an opportunity to receive educational services and make academic progress. Academic progress. Any student who is suspended or expelled shall have the opportunity to earn credits, make up assignments, tests, papers, and other schoolwork as needed to make academic progress during the period of his or her removal from the classroom or school. The principal shall inform the student and parent guardian of this opportunity in writing, in English and in the primary language of the home when such suspension or expulsion is imposed. Any student who is expelled or suspended from the school for more than 10 consecutive days, whether in or out of school, shall have an opportunity to receive education services and make academic progress toward meeting state and local requirements through the school-wide education service plan. Principal shall develop a school-wide education service plan describing the education services that the school district will make available to students who are expelled or suspended from school for more than 10 consecutive days. The plan shall include the process for notifying such students and their parents, guardians of the services and arranging such services. Education services shall be based on and be provided in a manner consistent with the academic standards and curriculum frameworks established for all students under the law. The principal shall notify the parent, guardian, and the student of the opportunity to receive education services at the time the student is expelled or placed on long-term suspension. Notice shall be provided in English and in the primary language spoken in the student's home if other than English, or other means of communication where appropriate. The notice shall include a list of the specific education services that are available to the student and contact information for a school district staff member who can provide more detailed information. For each student expelled or suspended from school for more than 10 consecutive days, whether in or out of school, the school district shall document the student's enrollment in education services. For data reporting purposes, the school shall track and report attendance, academic progress, and other such data as directed by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Reporting. The school district shall collect and annually report data to DESE regarding an in-school suspensions, short and long-term suspensions, expulsions, emergency removals, access to education services, and other such information as may be required by DESE. The principal of each school shall periodically review discipline data by selected student populations, including but not limited to race and ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, English language learner status, and student with a disability status in accordance with law and regulation. References below.
And we have definitions. Do we need to read those?
Yeah, so the definitions on page 6, procedural references, I can't scroll down.
Okay.
So we defined restorative practices. They prioritize healthy relationships and promote positive discipline in schools by creating safe learning environments through community building and repairing harm. These practices have been shown to reduce, prevent, and improve harmful behavior, repair harm, and restore positive relationships, resolve conflict by facilitating reflection and understanding of our impact on others, and hold individuals and groups responsible for their choices. Collaborative problem solving to support students and build vital social emotional skills. A portion of our staff, as well as members of our administration, receive training from Mass General Hospital's Think Kids. Think Kids works with schools and families to address the social emotional needs of students so they can be successful socially and academically. The collaborative problem solving model presented by Think Kids is based on the premise, kids do well if they can. Through the collaborative problem solving model, adults are taught how to empathize, share their concerns, and positively collaborate with children to identify solutions. Mediation, or peer mediation, which is training peers to mediate. In school, mediation measures are taken to resolve a conflict without the use of detentions and suspensions. These conflicts can be between a student and a teacher or with a fellow student. Conflict resolution can be defined as the informal or formal process that 2 or more parties use to find a peaceful solution to their dispute.
Well done.
Hold on.
It's quite a policy.
Okay, I noticed a few like little typo things,
Yep.
but mostly, does anybody have questions or, yes, Dawn?
I did have a question about it. Well, I've got a question and a comment.
Okay.
It's in respect to under the expulsion provision. And I
Yeah.
just want to go back. We start the policy with all students deserve every opportunity to achieve academic success
Yeah.
in a safe, secure learning environment. So why under expulsion does it include only assault on a member of the educational staff and not on another student? What happens, like why wouldn't assault on another student be a cause for expulsion? It's for expulsion.
Okay.
It's law.
This is just what the
Well-
law
Stated
says.
law.
Yeah.
It's,
That
Yeah.
if somebody comes and beats me up, that at a as part of a school function, environment, or whatever, expulsion, up, any punishment up to and including expulsion is available.
okay, so we're tracking the law on that one, and the law does not protect students from assault unless it then becomes a felony charge
A
or
crime,
felony
correct. Right.
delinquency complaint or conviction. Is that, I just want to
That
make
would
sure.
make more sense, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
clear.
because students, I mean, I'm guessing there might be tendency to fight still. So
Right, so I think,
kids beating each other up is not very.
I guess
I
they
mean,
felt
I
like that
know
wouldn't be
it's-
appropriate to
Right. I
expel
think
them.
it goes back to all students
Right.
deserve a safe, secure learning environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it does seem contradictory to the first part, but the reason is because we're following the letter of the law on that,
Right.
and the only.
Yeah, I mean, this whole, if you notice, this is like a super, like, prescriptive policy. It's like there's a procedure within the policy, like the other one, JKAA, which is about physical assaults, that it's extremely prescriptive, like we have to follow exactly what they tell us to do.
And we
So
did
this is
have-
one of those.
And we did have Katie Minolt, our legal
Review it.
counsel.
Yep.
I just didn't know if there was
Yeah.
any way to further, and I get it, I think the answer is no, but I also wanted to
I can-
have that
I'll
conversation.
ask Katie about it.
It's problematic, right, when you read it. And I understand the why, but I think if there's any other district that does address that better
Yeah.
within what the law is. My other one was a comment under definitions. Did we write these, or are we tracking a definition somewhere else for restorative practices and collaborative problem solving?
We did not write these definitions.
Because my comment on it is it prioritizes the healthy relationships, promotes positive discipline. I feel like the definition tells me what it accomplishes, but it doesn't really tell me what it is. So can I get an example of what a restorative practice that would be used as a discipline measure is? And why isn't that part of the definition? Because I feel like it's telling me like the why and what it accomplishes, but not what it is.
I think it's because there are so many things, and there was a concern that if we list those
Yeah,
things,
we did
that
talk
people
about
would think
that.
those are the only things.
Right,
And it
and
might
those
be
would be the
something
only
that's more
things that we
appropriate,
used.
not knowing
Yeah.
what the
And
circumstances
We didn't want
might
anyone
be.
to say, for example, my student didn't get the opportunity to participate in a healing circle, or like name something specific that's mentioned in the policy.
Okay.
But maybe if we do want to illustrate that more, could we say something like, restorative practices may or may not include and are not limited to, or something like
Yeah, we have
that,
to
and
be
say
very-
some
Actually,
examples?
that's the conversation we did have.
Yeah, we did.
That was
Yeah,
about
we did
left
decide to
at the
omit.
last. So there, like, this was actually a specific question that I asked.
Right.
And I think I also had, Susan, so even when we send out the emails, I spoke about how we could actually list the things that a student who has digressed might be addressed. So, but that's what Susan said even
think-
at that time.
I think that what we mentioned was that in the student handbook, there are more like
There are more,
examples,
yeah.
but that's a more fluid document that's not a policy.
That's
It's
not a
just-
policy, exactly.
Right, so,
Want to tie the principal's hands.
right, but I get what you're
So
saying.
it's like,
We did
it could
talk
be,
about it.
it might include but not limited to might be a good language. So yeah, so that's something we probably will have to come back to.
And you feel like the student handbook addresses more of
Well, because it
what
gives
a
you very
restorative
specific, like
practice
when something happens, this is a
could happen.
consequence.
But does it include restorative practices in that when something happens, this could happen? I feel like a layperson reading that would be like, I have no idea what a restorative practice is, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's dig into it. I mean, I'm just trying to follow what like the law is on this one, but we all like mentioned something like that about just in general giving more guidance as to like what would be an example of for many of these things, but again, tying hands. But okay, so let me go back to Katie with those. Are there any other questions about this particular?
Just on that expulsion piece.
Yeah.
When it says assaults on a member of the educational staff, is that the wording from the law?
Yeah.
Because
That's the word
I'm
from the
just
law.
curious, can you define educational
Yeah, the
staff? 'Cause
cafeteria.
I pretty much,
Yeah.
I believe that it's,
Educational
yeah, you want us to define
Well,
what educational
I
staff is?
just, what,
It'd be anybody who.
Anybody who's in,
works
works for the
educational
school,
staff,
yeah.
not educators, but
Yeah, so
educational
it's educational
A
staff.
substitute, a soft
Anybody, like,
substitute,
you know, a bus driver, anybody, yeah.
okay, that's why I wanted to be.
That's a good question.
Okay, but we should probably define that, I guess, then,
Yeah,
right?
we
Anybody
have-
that,
Well,
I mean, in here.
you can.
So this is the other thing we talked about. Is it our job to, to define for everyone every single term in it?
No,
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
No, but
but certain things, yeah, we added those. Those were not part of it. We added that because we wanted a little bit more. But like, at what point do we start explaining what every single thing is? And that's one of those things I think that we can, but it was a discussion about do we want
I'm
to do
sorry,
that?
did we put, everywhere we got the definitions in the references? I'm sorry.
I don't, it should be in the,
If we did not, that's something we need to add.
we should add that if we
Right.
didn't.
Like the different sites we took the
Yeah,
definitions
because
from.
Jariel gave us some of.
Right. I'm not sure if we did or not.
Okay, so let's add those then.
Yes, so I think.
Are there other, I mean, as long as we're going to have like this, some definitions, we might as well, if there's other ones that you're like, we really need one for this, like we should add it.
okay, let's take a look.
Let's bother to do that. If
Since
we're going to
we've
do it,
already
since we already
opened that can.
opened that can of worms.
No, it's just,
Dawn, which one did you guys say? You guys
It was
said one.
educational staff and then about
Okay.
restorative practices.
Yeah,
And then references for the definitions themselves.
right.
I don't see anything else.
Okay. Anything else? Cool. All right.
The
Next
only
one.
thing, emergency removals, like,
Yeah.
oh, no, I see it, I see. The principal may remove a student from school temporarily, okay.
So, yeah, so if you see other things, reach out to me and we're planning to discuss it again at the end of the month and we can, work on it, approving it at our next meeting. And I mean, my feeling is that this was a huge change based on law because I think other districts may have been, and I think other districts were abusing it. So, or abusing the expulsion clauses and the suspension clauses. I don't see that as a huge issue in the district, but we also have to follow the law. Okay. Next one is, okay, you're gonna have to listen to me read this one. JICFB, which is bullying prevention. Again, these were ones that were looked at too. And they do have some more specific requirements in terms of procedure within the policy. So, but this is just a revision. So I'm just going to read the parts that we changed. So adding on the first page, cyberbullying shall also include the creation of electronic medium in which the creator assumes the identity of another person or knowingly impersonates another person as author of posted content or messages if the creation or impersonation creates any of the conditions enumerated in the definition of bullying. And let's see, on the second page, under prevention and intervention plan, the superintendent and/or their designee shall oversee the development of a prevention and intervention plan in consultation with all district stakeholders, which may include teachers, school staff, professional supports personnel, school volunteers, administrators, community representatives, local law enforcement agencies, students, parents, and guardians, consistent with the requirements of this policy, as well as state and federal laws. The bullying prevention and intervention plan shall be reviewed and updated at least biennially. The principal is responsible for the implementation and oversight of the bullying prevention and implementation plan within their school. And there are added legal references, Title 7, Section 703, Civil Rights Act of 1964, as amended, Federal Regulation 74676, issued by EEO Commission, Title 9 of the Education Amendments of 1972, 603 CMR 26.00 MGL, 71, Chapter 71, Section 37O, 265, MGL Section 265, Chapter 43 and 43A, MGL Section, Chapters 268, Section 13B, and 269, Section 14A. And then we just put in that we should have them linked, the cross-references linked. Okay. So any questions, concerns, what you want me to?
So the definition that you have here at the beginning for bullying, is
Yep.
that from the law
Yeah.
in text?
Yeah. You don't like it?
No, it's fine. I think people use the term bullying for sometimes when people just aren't being nice to each other. And I
Right,
thought
which is
the
why
law,
we defined it.
but I thought it was like there was actually not just repeated, but like there was a certain number or something. Like I still think it's
That's the legal definition.
okay.
So there is something now that you recall when we just did a legal training with Katie, that if like it could be 10 students on a social media and each one did it one time, but the collaborative effort made it bullying. So I want, now that I think of it, I apologize that we didn't have that
Okay.
looked at, but why don't we have that looked at with her one more
Okay.
time, because she might want to add some clarifying language on there.
Okay.
That doesn't have to be one person doing it all.
Right, if a group of get together,
Yeah.
then it rise to that. So I'll make a note here.
Okay, yep.
Good call.
Okay. Anything else on that one? All right. And then next is JLCD, and this again is a revision. We got a alert about, from MASC regarding an update in the language around medications administration in the schools. So I'm just going to read the changes. Medication may not be administered to students while at school unless such medicine is given to them by the school nurse acting under specific written request of the parent or guardian and under the written directive of the student's personal physician. See below for exceptions. If a student has been approved for self-administration, a student who needs medication during the school day may be reminded to take the medicine by the school nurse or other individual designated by the school nurse in the student's medical administration plan. This provision only applies when the school nurse has a medical administration plan in place for the student. No one but the school nurse and those others listed in the medical administration plan acting within the above restriction may give any medication to any student. Exceptions. The school district, I should say HPS, sorry. Shall, through the district leader, register with the Department of Public Health, DPH, and train personnel in the use of epinephrine auto-injectors, EpiPens. The school district may, in conjunction with the school physician and the school nurse leader, stock nasal naloxone, which is Narcan, and trained medical personnel and first responders may administer nasal naloxone to individuals experiencing a life-threatening opiate overdose in a school setting. If the school district wishes, I should say HPS again, sorry, I updated that, I don't know why it didn't take it, wishes medical personnel to train non-medical staff in the administration of nasal naloxone, the school committee shall vote to approve such training, and the superintendent shall ensure that medical personnel have a written protocol which complies with medical directives and regulations from the DPH. Following consultation with the school nurse, students who fall into the following exceptions may self-administer medications. 1, students with asthma or other respiratory diseases may possess and administer prescription inhalers. 2, that's it. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that one. Those are all included from previously. Sorry. Those exceptions have not changed. Okay. And then we added MASC as a cross-reference for the policy. Are there other questions? I just noted that I should have changed it to HPI. It was
Susan
changed,
just
I don't know why
changed
it
it.
just
It's
didn't.
changed it.
Oh, okay, good, thank you.
Is there any other one that I needed to fix? Did you notice?
It was just the
Though, just those two.
I might have missed one then.
Do you have to say for medical administration plan
First thing
504?
after accept.
You don't have to say 504, because you don't have, it's not necessarily in that. They may not have it at 504. They have a specific medical plan, and it has to be specific people. It's very directive. I asked about any sort of ways to, wiggle room in any of those. There is none.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just
Yep.
not asking you to wiggle.
Nope. It was more about like things like, so we had some discussion about some no medications and what is considered medication, and anything from like a cough drop to sunscreen is considered medication.
Right.
And so, but I don't think there's going to be too many high school students that are going to go ask the school nurse to lather them with sunscreen. So I'm just saying. Even though but.
Are we putting this policy on like I know you typically get through all the policies or every 2 years, but the fact that right in it, it says we have to look at it
has
at
to be-
least every
yeah.
2 years, so maybe calendar in some way that we look at it once a year?
We did look at it,
It's
the last time I
different.
looked at it with Lynn Bowler in 2020, just like mid-2020.
Okay.
So we're like on track of when we're supposed to be looking at it.
Because it's different than the other policies, which don't usually include this
Yeah.
right within it, that it
Some
has
of
to
them
be
do, a
looked at
lot of
at
the
least every
J
2
ones are
years.
like that.
Okay.
So, yep. Okay. Other questions? All right, cool. Actually, if anybody doesn't have any questions about this, I think I should ask for you to approve as amended, or as revised and amended. JLCD medications.
Motion to approve JLCD medications policy as amended.
Seconded by Stacy.
By Dawn, second by Stacy. All in favor?
Thank you. Okay, and then the last one I sent you as a separate whole folder with all of the information within it, which you hopefully did receive. I know it's a lot. So our current policy is policy IE, which we have now changed to IJ, as the memo that I sent you indicated, and that's because there was some confusion around the IEP process, and we didn't want there to be any confusion. It's essentially, a lot of it's similar, but they just sort of streamlined what the selection material, so we have a process. So this isn't really a new policy. We're just kind of shifting the coding language, but these provisions are new through MASC. So we should probably read through all of these. And then also included within that, we had a little discussion about how we would do that process in terms of procedures if people wanted us to reconsider certain materials. And that is, again, a living document, so it's not something we have to approve. It's something that is used by administrative staff to vet through. But they wanted to make us aware of that, and so we had some feedback around that. If you do have specific questions regarding any of the policy or the procedures, you can certainly reach out to me, or you can reach out to Joe Hicks, who helped us put together the policy and the procedures, including a Google Doc for parents to submit applications to reconsider materials.
Is the form, I don't see the form that goes with it, and we did that.
It
correct?
should have been in the folder. No, I sent them a separate.
Okay.
For some reason, I had contacted Lisa DeLuzio and
Okay.
asked her if she could upload it. I don't know if she just didn't get the copy
All right,
from
as long
you.
as everybody
So I
else
sent
got
it
it.
to her, and then I don't think it made it in time. So then I just sent it separately to everybody so that they would have that folder. And then I asked him just to give everybody viewing permission so that they would be able to view it.
Yeah,
So, so I just got to read it. We won't approve it tonight. We'll try to approve it the next meeting, just because it's a lot to digest. So I figured that you'd have questions, and then we could just vote on it next time, if that's okay. Okay, so I'm just going to read through the policy. All right. The school committee believes that materials appropriate to the needs of the school program must be available to each student and teacher. These will be furnished by the school committee subject to budgetary constraints. The task of selecting instructional materials for programs will be delegated to the professional staff of the school district. Because instructional programs and materials are of great importance, only those that meet the following criteria will be approved by the committee. 1, they must be present balanced views of international, national, and local issues and problems of the past, present, and future. future. 2, they must provide materials that stimulate growth in factual knowledge, literary appreciation, aesthetic, and ethical values. 3, they must help students develop abilities in reading and thinking. 4, they must help develop and foster an appreciation of cultural diversity and development in the United States and throughout the world. 5, they must provide for all students an effective basic education that does not discriminate on the basis of race, age, color, religion, national origin, sex, gender identity, physical disabilities, or sexual orientation. 6, they must allow sufficient flexibility in meeting the special needs of individual students and groups of students. And source MASC, etc. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so I'm going to just, I don't know if anybody wants to look at, this is one of the Google Doc that Susan's pulled up on the screen. It's just some of the materials.
And thank you to
The reporting. There's a lot of work. I really appreciate him coming. He was hoping that he'd be able to make it tonight, but he was not, just in case anybody had questions about it. And this was modeled after Medfield Public Schools materials. Okay, and so I'm not asking for a vote for tonight, so we can discuss it. If people have questions, please reach out to me. Our next meeting is at the end of the month, so.
I had a little bit of a
Sure.
Who is part of that reconsideration group?
That would be decided at the time, so that it would be a number of, he had a certain number of people, an odd number.
Is there anything that says, like, it's a teacher, an admin, a parent, like?
Yeah, they had a whole, it did
Okay.
say that.
It's all spelled out. Do
Yeah.
they have that?
They have all of that.
Is that something we can just see? Because I'm wondering who's comprised of this committee
I think it would change.
and how they get on it.
It was saying.
It is there.
It is in there, hold on.
It's like at minimum, it involves.
Yeah, there was a minimum of where it said involved.
Oh, where did okay.
So
I
this,
must miss this piece.
yeah, there's like 5 different documents.
Yeah,
Want me to
So there's a
reshare the
lot.
folder from Joe? I can.
Yes, because I
I'll
don't
share
think I
you-
saw
I'm gonna share
that
you
piece
the
of
folder.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
I'm not sure
Is it in
that
the
piece was in
procedure document?
You know what? I don't think I have the ability to share. I'm sorry.
Hold on.
It is under. Which one is
I
this?
have the chart. The
It's called New
instructions.
Instructional Materials Reconsideration.
Yeah.
Do you have that in there?
I might be able to share just this document. I don't think I can share the whole.
Am I losing my mind?
No, because
Cynthia's on it.
printed out what I
So
had.
I will
I
share
don't
the
know if
rest
it's
of the
that
document.
one piece may not
That's
be shared.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to put you on.
He gave me the whole folder, and I just shared with all of you the folder. Maybe that piece didn't come in through
I'm
the
not
folder?
sure
Okay.
why, but
Okay.
you should have it now.
Yeah, so the process just kind of showed what the escalation could be.
I did see
But again,
that.
it's like, this is just sort of it's there.
Do you want to read it?
Yeah, it's lengthy. So it talks about who the person to be contacted is. I saw that, but then
Maybe it has
who's
it into the
part of
link. What's the link
this
where it says there?
reconsideration committee
Here's
and how they're formed,
consideration.
membership. Okay. It's comprised of members of the Holliston Public School
No, that's not.
community who work together to
review the
evaluate reconsideration requests. It may include the assistant superintendent,
Right.
the director of social emotional learning and equity, district curriculum coordinators of the related
There it
contact
is.
department,
Thank you.
chair, principal, faculty member, other staff, faculty, high school student rep if applicable.
Yeah. Do you have suggestions for somebody else who'd want to?
No, I didn't have a. May proceed without one or more members. Okay. Okay, I see the whole process here. That makes
Okay.
more sense.
Was that not in the folder?
I don't know. I don't think I saw this
Okay,
piece. That's what I
okay.
was.
I mean, again, like I said, it was a lot, and I sent it to you yesterday, so. So again, we'll table it to discuss, and if anybody has, reach out to me, reach out to Joe, he's like the guru on this. We didn't draft like any of this, like this was stuff that he pulled from Medfield, and then, Hollistonized it essentially. And then we had some input in terms of, like you're suggesting, people that would be considered for that committee if we needed one. So again, we're just trying to be proactive with this policy. Joni brought it to our attention, so that's where we're moving forward with it. Okay, so that, I believe, is my time.
It was was heavy reading this week.
Thank you. It was reading this week. That's why I wanted to warn you, because I was like, sorry.
heavy
I'm
reading
going to suck
for
up
sure.
some time tonight, so, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You were just closing out Read Across America.
That's it. That's what I was doing, and Amanda was helping. Thank you so much.
All right. Central office.
Tomorrow is Good Friday, so
It is.
schools are closed. I hope everybody enjoys a long weekend and some good weather. Is it Monday, Joni, that Aladdin is being
Yes.
shown to the students? So I'm hoping to go over there for that. And I don't know, there's just a lot going on. MCAS is still going on. That's been quite a lift. We finished our first round of learning walkthroughs at Miller last Thursday, I think it was, the end of last week. So we're going to try to fit in one more round of learning walkthroughs as an administrative team before the year is out. Might not be till the beginning of June because we've got to get through all the MCAS stuff. But it was very enlightening, and the team really enjoyed going into the classrooms, and it was exciting to see that the kids, well, we're still seeing a lot of dysregulation of students, and we're hearing about it. There wasn't evidence of it that day when we were in the building. They were doing a great job, and maybe it's because they had guests and they were on their best behavior, but the kids did a really nice job, and we could see the strong relationships between staff and students, and the ability to now start empowering students and push them out of their comfort zones as they've started to get back to normalcy in the school district. So that was good to see. And I'm sure there are plenty of other things going on, but I'll leave it at that for today.
Can I ask about the learning walks?
Mhm.
So I think it's so awesome that, I've told you this before, how present you all are in schools. And I think it's great that you're getting into classrooms. And the teachers know it's like it's not evaluative in any way, right?
We send out beforehand exactly why we're doing it here, and we told them what we're looking for. We were looking to see evidence of student engagement in the classroom. We kept it very light this year. Next year, we would like to add teachers, or if they want to, that could come with us on those
to walk
walks and give
through
that
as
feedback.
well.
But the process is non-evaluative. It's just to look at data together as a school. Next year, maybe we would make some suggestions, what we saw that was really great, and then there might be some suggestions as well, but it's really not going to be identifying anyone in particular, just related to the school goals. You see, we just did a district goal, and next year we'll add a school goal for each school that they want us to focus on and look for when we're in the classrooms. And then we send a follow-up out at the end to say what we saw that day, and how wonderful it was to be there. And I think the staff were very receptive. Some of the staff were not even told we were coming. Well, they were told that someone was coming, but not necessarily to their room. And they didn't miss a beat, even if they didn't know that we were coming into their room specifically that day. People were open to it and didn't seem threatened by it at all. So I think we all had a very positive experience. We even made Mr. Uday come. I know you do.
I get to visit with some of my old teachers. Not my teacher, but teachers my kids had. Things like that. So.
I was going to say.
All right.
Okay. We had the pleasure of sending a curriculum newsletter. We had over 2,800 views, so we were very excited about that. And the three curriculum coordinators are really highlighting visually and in words the incredible work the teachers are doing with the students and really engaging them. So please, if you have not checked it out, please check it out. Myself, Dr. Akuska, Cynthia, and Stacy, we had the pleasure of going to the Global Citizenship Program presentation. That was very good. Yeah, very, it seems like forever ago, right? Very proud of our students, very impressive work that they are doing and came up on their own, right? We are continuing our ELA curriculum review, secondary review, meeting as a group led by Joe Hicks, continuing the math curriculum review led by James Lavassier. We just had a half a day recently, extremely productive. We're also looking at, in both of those areas, to have some half days coming up, still this school year. And then Dr. Kuska and I, we were able to attend a very enlightening and well-worth conference at Holy Cross, Women in Educational Leadership, where women from all over the state came.
Can I ask another question? I'm sorry, I have a lot of questions. Do you know if there's, or maybe Cynthia or Stacy, if there's like a website that talks about the different projects that the
Oh,
Global
yeah.
Citizen
Oh, yeah.
do? I can probably just find it from
I had the QR code. I just took out the little
probably
pamphlet out of my
find
purse before I came here.
It's just on like the school's
Holliston High
website.
School.
Yeah, it's on the Holliston High School
Okay,
website,
thanks.
under the
Did they get
global
a
citizenship, and then they have the whole
barn or
capstone.
shed
Show my kids,
for
that's
the
why.
mats yet?
No.
Still no?
Still not yet.
No.
I was really surprised.
It's awesome. And I'm sorry, I forgot, our last PD day of the year took place on March 22nd. Just to give you a broad overview of what happened. Placentino, there was a school safety presentation done by Cheryl Lassie, Chief Cassidy, and SRO Woods. They all also had structured literacy professional development. In all schools, they had safety care representatives from each, they had safety care training with people from each of the schools. Miller, there was an autism from awareness to advocacy from our own Ella Reed and Carla Brady, an incredible presentation. They also, at Miller, had a culturally responsive education relationship mapping, and that is based on the incredible work that Principal Keim is doing with MTSS right now with some of the students. At Rams, they had student learning and professional practice goals, update and reflection, along with student learning and professional practice goals, next step and feedback. And finally, at the high school, they concentrated on vision of a graduate with the outside presenter. And then there were a wide range of what the departments worked on, but a lot of them were either working on curriculum work or vision of a graduate work and how they were doing that in specific lessons. Yes?
Julie, with the professional development day regarding the school safety presentation, does any of that get videoed in order to, if somebody misses or if we have a group that's not part of that, that we can still send that out? Is there any capacity
We
to do
are
that?
looking at doing that for next year. That's a great idea, and we realize that we do need to do that. Unfortunately, with like outside presenters, a lot of them will not let you videotape. It's quite interesting.
Alternatively, is there a way to capture some of that information, like some of the suggestions they had on it, almost in an email? Just if there was a group or if there were individuals that had to miss that,
We can
and that they
definitely do
wanted
that. Yes.
information.
And we did create for the different trainings, like a presentation that they could at least view the slides and then they could ask questions about that, even if they couldn't
Yes.
see the live piece of it.
Yes.
Okay.
So I know that the administrators at each building, they send that out to the staff that if they weren't there that day as well.
Okay, so all staff, including like Paris?
Yes, and that's one thing we struggled with this year. We added the training for paraprofessionals, and we wanted to do, we did do a safety training at the beginning of the year, but it wasn't practicing the drills, and that's something we're trying to build in for next year to make sure that everybody gets that opportunity during the PD days earlier in the year.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a way to get the paras information soon?
You mean
I'm
about
scared to
safety
wait.
training?
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
scared
so
to wait
what-
until next year. Be like, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine until next year. It's not something you
So,
wanna say,
yes,
right?
and what Placentino did, for instance, they were not there. Officer Woods had office hours that they got to drop in and hear.
You could ask questions.
Correct. They could hear exactly what he
were the
said.
office hours? The paras are the most
Well,
like
we're actually,
overworked.
we're actually meeting with Tricia Clark, Jess and I think, next week to talk about if there's other ways, and whether we could offer some after-school time, at different
Okay.
times that they could.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't want to even put out into the ethos what we're all thinking, but we can't wait until
Right.
September to do
Right.
a training. And if the paras weren't there and maybe some people were missing, then that means there's too many people who don't know.
Yeah, Keith and I have already
what to
talked
do.
about that, whether we could pay them for that short. Like, it might only be like 30 minutes to 45 minutes if they were able to make it and get to more people. We just have to kind of get dates of when they might be available.
And in the alternative, because I know people sometimes don't make it, if we can do an outline of what they should know about it, that we think is really important.
We're going to, one of our goals as a central office is to start building a video library.
Perfect. Yeah.
So, we thought of that this year and a little too late, but we definitely want to do what you're saying. Unfortunately, the one thing, we would not be able to videotape it and do it, send it out for staff because you're giving confidential information out that staff has, but it should not be.
Yeah, I've had parents
Consumed
ask
by
me
other
that. They
people.
want to know, so exactly what do you do? And
Right.
my response is always, we guard that because we don't
Right.
want any potential threat to be aware of our preparation either, so that
Right.
they can't think and plan ahead of that. It's
So
like
that needs to
we
be
have keep
verbally
up,
said,
yeah.
but the rest of it we can definitely do.
But there must be some basic overlap, like even substitutes. I mean, you could have kindergarten classes with substitutes on a day that something happens, so they must have to have some layer of knowledge on this,
Yeah,
right?
and like I said, at the beginning of the year, I presented with the police officers, our SROs, Chief Cassidy, Jess Beatty. We did a presentation, and we went through all of that. They just didn't practice it in their classrooms. We did that training up here, but we did produce all those slides and share them out of that. I think we shared them out with everybody.
Yes.
Do you think there might be a way to, you know, like I'm thinking about like when you're at a hotel or something and like the escape plan is on the back of the door, like if it's like inside a drawer or something in every desk, so that if there is a brand new sub who came in and has been to none of these trainings, doesn't know about the video library that is forthcoming, but you know what I mean?
They
To
do have
a,
something in every room. It just, the problem, I don't know how they communicate that to the subs. That would be a question I
Yeah.
have, but there is something for each classroom. They give them a packet. I don't want to say too much.
Yeah,
about
I
it.
know, yeah, I'm just thinking
Yeah.
like if it's a packet that you have to read, you might not do that
Yeah.
before you go to work, right? So if there's in the drawer or under the mat, or like there's a place where the sub knows to go, where there's information that is graphic, in case there's any, language differences, like it has to be graphic, it has to be clear, it has to be, inside a cabinet or, when
The
we
one
said those
thing
like
you have
poison
to
control
keep in
stickers
mind
that we see
now,
everywhere.
there's a bazillion different situations that could happen. So there's not written plans for every situation.
Well, and I know
Because-
that
But
there's
some
You know what I'm
information
saying?
is better than none, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, even if you can't give them all the information about every single situation.
Right.
I'm sure for both, in the minuscule possibility that something actually happens, but also for the peace of mind of the subs and paras, that they just want to feel more equipped.
right.
Maybe that could be part of the onboarding process for the subs, saying like, these are the locations in the classroom where you can access that information, particularly the location of the school.
Would you like to say something? Yes.
Hi, if it's okay, Dr. Cuska, we're looking at systems to replace our current staff forms, which include a substitute component, and we can actually front-load that information for substitutes.
Yes, so that's
There you go.
because a lot of the trainings we've talked about, we're now doing a lot of the beginning of the year trainings on unified talent, and we're trying to find something similar that we can push out to all new people to the district for that reason, I'm hoping we'll have that in place for next fall, right? We're thinking about,
Staff forms
yeah,
and substitutes.
yeah.
And just even something as simple as for a brand new person who may come in the middle of the year, a building floor plan, just so they know where the exits are.
That's how that all came up, because we were trying to think of onboarding for new staff.
Yeah.
And we had a lot come in the middle of the year. So that's where it
Yeah.
all came up, that we're like, oh, we need to
Yep.
really start making a video library of all these things.
Great.
And each classroom should have the exits posted about which way you go out in the event of.
There is a plan.
Yeah.
Turn left here, turn left.
No,
It's code.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yep.
That is.
All right.
I have
Finance
nothing.
questions? All right. Personnel?
We are still short, I think, about 7 or 8 paraprofessionals in the district. I did talk to Ms. Beatty about whether or not for the remainder of the year, if we could potentially look for temporary staff through a vendor. I'm not positive, even though they'll send us emails, some of these agencies, but then when you ask for them to produce, they don't always do so, but we are going to look into that again. Our biggest challenge has been just what we're talking about tonight, that training, because of that is our group of people, paraprofessional, that has had the constant turnover rate for lots of reasons, whether it's financial, getting closer to home, or just, part of it could be a lot of people are taking jobs and not necessarily know what the job entails until they start it. So that has been our biggest, most challenging population to keep staffed. We just hired a few positions for next year. I think we're.
Paraprofessionals?
No, not for paraprofessional, for teaching positions, some that were just open. So I had 4 interviews yesterday. I'm excited about some of the people that are coming into the district for next year. One of them is our, should knock on wood, because, you know, they haven't signed their paperwork yet, but the French-Spanish teacher at the high school, for example. Trying to think what else. A social studies teacher for the high school should be onboarding. So we've been able to, I feel like we don't have a lot of openings in teaching staff for next year. And it's going to be, again, that target of our support staff seems to be our most challenging piece.
Do you do the interviews with all the candidates?
With teachers, I do the final interview and meet with them to vet, you know, obviously related to salary and where they would fall on that. I try to do at least a 15, 20-minute check-in with each of them. Unless there's more than one candidate, then I might do a longer one because I'm asking them more detailed information.
That's a lot.
I'd like to try to do that with paraprofessionals, but just given the volume that we've had, I
Yeah.
don't see my ability to do so, but I have done that in the past, trying to at least have that conversation. Joni and I are trying to also work on, we did a little bit last year, I think, with paraprofessionals, but
Yes.
an orientation in the summer that we would have when we do the teacher induction, to have some time with paraprofessionals, that we could go over more of what the expectation is. The challenge is, though, that even if we do that, it's that during the year piece is still the hardest part for us to manage, because there's just only so many people that can work with them. I'm going to try to work more with Lisa DeLuzio and Peggy and see if there's something that they can do and kind of go over some of this stuff. It'll be helpful, as Dan said, when we get some more of those documents into our system, because at least then you'd have some videos that they could watch and ask questions in that manner as well.
One of the things we love about you is that you're so involved with everything, but do you think it would be helpful for you to almost delegate those interviews and like a little bit of the hiring if it's such a high volume or continues to be this high
With
volume?
paraprofessionals, I would have to delegate. With the teachers, I feel like I can manage that because it's just different times of the year. So I'm feeling okay with that. But if it gets
It's
to
just
be.
funny because I've never like met with any superintendent for any job consideration at all.
And I've had the opposite. I've always met with a superintendent. I mean, it's like a teacher.
Yeah.
Amanda,
Yeah.
how do you do it? Like, is it?
In Framingham, it's so big. It's different because
It's very large.
Staff is like, you know, close to 200, but it's not even you barely meet with the principal. Like, you check in with the principal for that formal salary negotiation talk.
Interesting.
You meet with the department head, my department head, who's in charge of about 20 math teachers, hires for the math department.
In my last district, we had about 6,800 students and however many staff. And as the assistant superintendent of personnel, I met with every single teacher and had those conversations. So the superintendent had me to do that, but it was still, the volume was that much bigger because it was a larger district.
Yeah.
I did meet with paras sometimes, but again, if we can do an orientation with a larger group, so we might want to consider doing like an end of the year, in a beginning of the year orientation, and then maybe quarterly ones, that even if we couldn't catch them on day one, that we could do some follow-ups, you know.
Get that done, yeah.
That is our biggest, I'd say the group that we have the most challenges onboarding.
And I'm sorry, how many positions for next year are still open?
Oh, for next year,
For teaching?
For teaching.
I don't think we have anything else posted right now that's not. I'd have to look at the website because they're on the website right now, but
Oh,
I
maybe
didn't
I know
see
the high
any
school.
except for
next
the
meeting.
chorus, that we're still waiting, trying to.
we do need to
Halftime chorus.
fill an SSA at Placentino. She did resign to take a position closer to home, so that position should be posted.
Special educator at Adams will come up, right?
I
That's
think that one's
retirement.
filled. Oh, okay, maybe that's a different one.
Yeah.
So we do have a
I think
couple
it's a
that haven't been
couple.
posted yet because they're
Less
just
than a
coming up
handful.
now.
Yeah.
And foreign language at the high school,
We just filled one.
both positions? Like,
I think we're all set with the high school ones
There's only-
because we
there's
just.
only one opening for the split language.
so
that's-
we found a candidate who speaks both languages
Correct.
again?
Yes.
Actually, more importantly, teaches in both languages.
Right, teaches.
Can I ask another question about personnel? This is for the whole group. We might want to have a talk about rethinking the COVID vaccine mandate for staff, only because.
It's on.
It's on the
Okay,
agenda.
I'm glad you.
that's that, okay. I didn't
We'll
know
bring
if
it
that's what that meant.
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
Do you want to go down to that and then come back? Is that, do your reports, since you brought that up?
Why don't we talk about it now because it's a personnel? Or we could wait till a little bit?
Yeah, let's just do it now.
Okay.
I feel like we're in it.
Yeah, only because, you know, I love vaccines and I get them all many times, but only because of the staff shortage that we're in right now, with particularly with paraprofessionals, do you think we are losing candidates who see in the paperwork that they can't apply because they don't have the COVID vax. And I'm just, before I was very in favor of it, but now does it seem like not being COVID vaccinated is not the spreading agent that we thought it to be?
We've had this
I was gonna
conversation.
say, isn't this a bargain issue? Like, I don't know if we can have that
I can have this
conversation.
conversation.
No, what I was gonna say is, I thought the motion that we made, because I remember being really concerned about this and really careful, is that mandate was only through the public health emergency.
So just to clarify, I did run this through Andy Waugh as well, because this conversation has come up with us. So if you look back, you voted to do the mandate, and then also we had an MOU with our HFT members for the mandate. That HFT MOU expired last June.
Right.
So
Okay.
technically, that's null and void.
That's what I was
But
asking.
Andy did suggest that because that the MOU was covering HFT individuals, but anyone non-union that wasn't tied to that technically would still fall under your previous vote. So he suggested you would rescind that vote at this meeting, and then that would be gone, and then you could always revisit it later if something changed as well.
Because it's on the hiring paper, like when
And we could- yeah.
someone told me from who doesn't, is no affiliation with Holliston, like, oh, I didn't apply because it said
Correct.
this.
And that's exactly, that's why we had this conversation, so that's why I was going to recommend that you vote to rescind that, or table it, or however you wanted to put it.
If it was through the health emergency, like, doesn't that expire as of May 11th or something anyway?
I would have to look at what you actually said that night for the vote. I don't have that vote in writing, so I'd have
I
to.
mean, it's officially ending on May 11th.
Yeah, May 11th, that's what I was
yes.
saying.
Yeah.
If that was the wording you had, I wouldn't know that off the top of my head.
Has policy had a chance to discuss this within their subcommittee, to do a little bit of research and then maybe make a general recommendation? Is that something you might want to consider?
I wonder if before we vote tonight, we might want to do that and also get some information. I could reach out to HFT and see, like, I wouldn't want to make anyone super uncomfortable if this is going to all of a sudden be widespread, making people fearful of COVID. Now that unvaxxed folks are
reach
going
out to them. I think
Well, I don't
that's-
think we can legally
Okay.
mandate. I
Okay.
saw something in the Boston newspaper.
I just mean like a request
It upheld,
for
like
input.
Michelle Wu, the mayor, the vote to have the vaccine mandate. They upheld that through the appeal process, but they wouldn't now, because now it's where the endemic is being lifted, so.
Yeah, I guess
Okay, I'm
I'd
just-
like to see.
I don't think you have the ability legally to mandate it anymore, is what I'm
I'd
saying.
like policy to be able to have an opportunity to do some of the research and have the discussion and come back to us with a recommendation. And if it's going to be the recommendation, maybe we also put it on the agenda as a vote on it, because that also gives the public an opportunity, because it's
To know
their
that we're
children that we're
voting, yeah.
sending here to school,
Right.
that if they had input on this, and staff as well could give us input on this. That's why I would really hesitate to take any vote tonight.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Sounds good. Is there anything else going back up from personnel? Any other questions or comments? Anything else that you want to add before we go on to subcommittees? Anyone? All right, communications. I'm going to assume there's no update from there right now.
No, but in terms of communications, for communications, we organize the office hours.
Yeah.
And so we've now had the 3 office hours leading up to budget. I'm not even sure where that falls into, if it falls under communications or budget, but I think since Lisa with communications originally organized it. So we had one at Coffee Haven in person. We had the Zoom one last Wednesday night, which was well attended, 30, 40 participants identifying a host of issues. And then there was an additional one, right, before Coffee Haven. What
At
was
Casey's or something?
Okay, yes. And I think our goal was to try and get another communication out in advance of town meeting. So it's a to be determined on a date for that subcommittee meeting, but our goal is to get a newsletter out in advance of town meeting.
Can you remind me the date of town meeting?
May
Is it 15th?
15.
Thank you.
15th, I think.
All right. Policy?
Our next meeting is Thursday, April 27th at 2:30 PM at the central office.
budget?
So budget's going to jump around a little because we also have down under new business the FY24 capital request or Placidina roof repair, and that was really a big piece of our most recent budget meeting. I guess I can also report that budget attended the Finance Committee meeting 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, and then again this past Tuesday night, and then we had a budget subcommittee meeting. Gosh, Keith, when was it? Monday morning. And I wanted to address an additional FY24 capital request we wanted to talk about. So what's best? Do we want to?
Let's wait until a little bit further.
Okay, fair enough. We will have an additional meeting probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but we don't have a date yet, so that's also a to be determined.
So superintendent evaluation, we're sort of midstream on that, and we're going to regroup this evening during our executive session and sort of make a plan going forward, given that we're a little behind on our plan schedule and need to figure out where to go next.
We still have time to work all of this in
We
advance
do.
of the town election, and we have how many more school committee meetings? One at the end of April, and then we also have at least one May one in advance of the town election.
Right.
So it'll get done.
It'll get done, yes. All right. And then school start times, I don't know if we're ready to talk about the stuff we're working on yet. I think we're still working on it, so we'll give an update next time.
But in sort of in that vein a little bit, Keith, do you have any update from the town on Woodland Street closure? Or anything that we need to share? Honestly, I listened to the select board meeting the other night and I cannot remember if anything.
Nothing's been reported to me directly. I do know that they were working through the alternatives with regards, the one-lane signalized thing is done. That's not happening. They had, the engineer was working on getting approval. I think that's what they were at. They're waiting for approval because, from conservation, correct? Because of the change in the water flow of Factory Pond based on the temporary structures that had to be built. So I think that's where they're at. I think the engineering piece for the bridge has been approved, I believe, but it's now the temporary dam piece that's being impacted, so.
And anecdotally, being in that 8:10, 8:05 like traffic time frame, I honestly don't see a significant increase in craziness. There's more traffic on Washington Street for sure, but are you feeling any pain with the buses?
We're a little pokey, not tremendously, and some days are worse than others. Our key street is still Elm Street. You know, traffic, because more traffic goes up Elm than it did before, because it used to, people from the southern side of town now go up, they'll turn right onto Railroad and go up Elm, where before they turned right on the Railroad and went through the Woodland. So it's.
But if you're smart, you'll take Church, where you don't have to wait for people to turn left.
Don't tell the secret, Amanda. Shush.
I did talk to Chief Stone and Travis
Or take Elm.
about Elm when you're coming, if you're coming from Washington Street and going down and trying to turn left, and the buses are all swinging, turning right, it is a little challenging with kids crossing, so I don't know if they're going to
Moving the crossing guard piece.
Yes,
yeah. But, yeah, it's the traffic, as well as the number of parents we have dropping off, especially at Placentino time. There is only one way out again now, to go up Elm.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
it just gets pokey there. I just, when the days when occasionally Officer Woods will go and clear that out for us, and those days are just much better. So.
On another note that I did forget to mention, Keith and I and Mr. Jordan had a meeting with.
I don't know if we want to mention that.
No?
We can.
I think we can.
You opened the Pandora's box.
With Mark Frank from the Recreation Department to have a follow-up on Flag Field. We don't have any plans, but we're talking
The
about.
swimming pool's looking good.
No swimming pool.
Oh, I
There will
can't
be
believe
no
you just
swimming
said that, Mr. Boudet.
The students did ask me to share that with Mr. Frank, and however.
That they
is-
wanted a swimming pool?
Yes, yes.
Ah.
That is not an option for many reasons, one of them being who's going to upkeep it, and that would be
I thought we were just
staffing.
getting one of those like blue ones that my kids had.
Those
Just,
blow-up
you know,
ones?
But at any rate, we had a really positive meeting where, again, no plans yet, but we're hoping at some point that the proposal could be coming from a town to school committee to vote on related to the use of that land, and hopefully stay tuned on that. So
Great. What are some of the things up for discussion about the use?
potentially a basketball court, but we also talked about whether we could have it be a multi-purpose court, because for our students, and we'd need maybe pickleball, I mean, as much as possible that we could fit in there, but that we would want to fence it in so that the students could access it from the school during the day, and then after school it would be a community resource as well.
Yeah, but they can't get into the school.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so no, it was good, Mark was really on the same page with us, and truthfully, doing this will help him with some other projects in town, so there's a potential project at Goodwill that he's looking into that would actually benefit our tennis team, so, well, it's all.
Nothing's overnight, but let's hope that at some point it comes to fruition.
And if it does, it'll be a very nice addition, the combination of them, so.
And the Parks and Rec, that really have been so collaborative, and really we've got some, solutions for some of the issues that the schools are finding, so that's awesome.
There are some
They're
great
really
Parks
good.
Commissioners on that.
Well, they're good at hiring staff.
Can you tell the Parks Commissioner, I'd like to see a grass amphitheater outside? It'd be pretty.
I can pass that along.
Pass that along, please. There's one on the quad at BC that's relatively new, and it's just wood and then grass and then wood. No, it's not complicated. It's not.
I'm just
It's like-
thinking,
Isn't that
I did my
happening?
master's at BC, and they have a lot of money with the
They really do.
I can hear my husband saying, I'm not
even
sending them any more
I could
money.
hear the eye rolls coming before I even said it. It's just wood, like railroad tied wood, and then grass, and then wood, and then grass, and like the kids sit there. They can sit there and study. They
Like the
sit there
back of
and
the
eat.
Christ the King Church, where-
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I guess they got to do something to attract students, that's about the only thing to get people there,
That's
so.
the amphitheater is why people go there. Actually, that's what I've heard.
This doesn't have to do with us, but Blair Square,
Yeah, that's supposed to be open for business.
isn't that
this
going to be an
month, right?
amphitheater?
I thought there was supposed to be a little amphitheater.
I have not heard.
Look at the town website, there's a link with the whole
They said it was
project
gonna be
plans and
ready, like,
everything.
now. I don't think it's gonna be ready this
grant
end of this month.
Was that grant funded?
No, it was CPC funds.
CPC funds. We don't know open that can of
Yeah,
worms
we
yet.
don't.
Okay, you're right.
But I thought that was supposed to be opening like this month, no? Did you?
Not our
Read the town
department.
website.
Oh, sorry.
We have no idea. We're just chatting. Okay, we'll talk
Right,
about that
moving on.
off camera.
Yeah.
I was just going to advocate for the students who don't play
Yeah,
basketball.
Well, that's why
that,
we talked about other
It would be
options.
nice to have it
Yeah,
because
it needs to be
it's
multi,
well, the
yes.
theater kids, but also you can just sit there and read because it's a
Yeah.
really nice
That's exactly what some of the kids wanted us to put up hammocks where they could read. I don't know.
Oh, I love that. They do that.
But I
every
did I brought all those ideas
I know,
to
it's
the
not a
table.
great idea.
And potentially something with,
Liability, what are you kidding me? They go
I'm kidding about the hammocks, but the kids said that, but we did talk about wanting some kind of covered area that potentially kids could just chill.
Yes.
And we
relax.
have some recommendations from the students about having a covered pavilion
Yep.
that
Yep.
had rain barrels. Like
Yep.
there was the whole,
They
there's
have
some
a
plans
lot.
that
Cool.
Well,
Mr. Jordan
I
has.
can tell you that the students I met with in grades 5 and 6 through 8 shared quite a list that
I'm sure they did.
600 kids, so you'd get some list.
Well, I didn't meet with the whole student body.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So in old business, we have the finalized school calendar.
Is there something else we need to vote on?
So I don't think
We made a couple of
There's a
changes.
shocking
We already
lack of
voted on
purple in this, and I'm really disappointed about it. I spoke to Lisa DeLuzzi about it. I was like, what are we doing here? Like, come on.
I'm just going to remind you that the school colors are red.
I guess, but like, there's other colors, like with the other holidays and whatever.
Yeah,
PD
maybe it
days?
would-
Come on, just throw me a bone.
Purple, that's
Anyway.
because she
did add
saved it for you to
purple
check
for
off.
white.
Where? Where is
Did
the
on
purple?
August 29th.
August 29th.
She
made
did?
purple.
Yes.
She
Did.
Oh, wait, where? I didn't see
for you.
that.
August
there, look.
29th.
Aw,
That was a
Never mind, I
change.
can't
she
scroll
is
up.
the best. I did email her about it. Oh, there it
It's the
is.
little things. in life.
It's like a little pale though, Lisa.
I
Just
think
saying, it
I
could
think
be a little
it's
dark.
I think it's great that our last day is a Friday.
Yes, as long as it stays that way.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
it might
idea.
not, but
That's
that's
the
all right.
idea.
I also like to once again.
It's March.
Actually,
You
Okay.
can hope for the best.
no, I'm not going to say anything.
This is for
I'm not
like
gonna-
next. This is
right.
next year's calendar, not this year's
I was
calendar.
going to say something about.
We
no
haven't
notice this
decided
year.
on the end of
Yeah.
school day and end of year.
Forgot that.
No, we
Date.
voted on the beginning of
we?
the year and end of year.
Oh yeah,
already.
no. I mean like
sorry.
the end of
Oh,
this.
for this year.
For
This year,
this
we have
year.
school
Sorry,
day.
I'm confusing.
We're not jinxing
sorry.
it yet.
Yeah, we have
Can't
not
we?
had any snow days.
We should be able to
So
vote.
we should
Correct,
be
we
able
have
to vote,
not.
right? Yes.
But it's not on the calendar, it's not on
not
this,
on
but
it.
I just was thinking that we haven't voted for it yet, and we
Haven't said
should
it.
decide on the last day of
Right.
school. But I still want to consider just a pilot year, everybody, a pilot year, 1 year of just doing a March break. No February, no April.
We can make it
You
March.
can start to
One March
vote, you
break.
can vote this in June.
That's a maybe, but it's going to require tons and tons and tons
Okay.
of discussion.
I would love to
And
put
I
out a
think
survey.
we
I
did
would like
talk
that.
about if we were going to make
one
changes,
year.
because people, as
Just-
you know,
just
plan
one
vacation
time.
a year ahead, so
Yeah.
that we'd have to,
Have to give a year.
next year would be the
Right.
year you'd have to start.
All right,
talking
fine.
about that.
But I just want to bug in people's ear. We certainly can still do like a long weekend in that February time. Don't roll your eyes at me, Mr. Bidet. And then, the same around the, like, if we needed to, around like the Easter holiday. But I feel like we would gain listen, everybody complains about how hot it is
Do 6
and how
long weekends,
it's not able to
could be
manage
even more-
it.
It could be later even.
No, it wouldn't be.
I
So
have
because
4
we just
years
have
left before my kid goes to college.
Listen, I'm
Let
just
me
saying,
take
like, we
vacation.
complain about how hot it is once we get into the late of June. So if we can absorb some of those days by making a shift in our calendar, I mean, I feel like that would be the way to go.
It would throw.
I know, but like, then we would have the pick of where we could fly people. Think about it.
Can this,
No, because we'd
Think
be
about
aligned
it.
with the rest of the.
I'm not flying anywhere, but other people do.
do we need to vote this, or can we finally post it without the draft on it to the district website? Because
So-
people have been,
Because you voted the beginning and end already, we can post this. You don't really have to vote
Great.
on the
Okay.
other things.
All right,
so
well, do you
unless-
want to highlight what's different from the last time we looked, though,
Joey,
please,
do
if
you
you
have
don't
that
mind?
list?
Sorry, I went off on a
We
tangent.
moved,
Apologize.
because of,
It was because of the
high
March dates we
school-
moved, right?
right, we moved from January, correct me if I'm wrong, 24th to the 10th.
10th, right, for 1.5
Yes.
days.
And
yeah.
that was because of high school
Exams.
exams,
Yep.
thank you. And then,
We moved one of the March dates, didn't we have, we moved to May 1st, wasn't that the other one? Because
Yes,
I
yes.
think we had 2 in March, and we
Yes.
just felt with MCAS and everything was tight.
yes.
So we moved the final half day to May 1st.
Okay,
I think that was it.
all right.
And the principals did all see this and comments and all of that.
Okay, so do we need to approve it then?
You already voted on the
we've already
beginning and the
voted.
end, you just wanted us to look at some of
All
those
right.
other dates, so you don't need to vote those since you already voted, so we should be able to post it now.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right, new business. Naming school property.
would it be okay if Mr. McLeod joined us at the table?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'd rather he didn't.
No, I'm just kidding.
Freshy.
Great.
So as I shared with you via email, I had sent sort of a unofficial memo. I'd like to formally request that we name the small room off of the Rams Library in memory of Mary McNamara, former Rams Senior Technology Land Administrator. I have the support of her family, Mr. Jordan, Rams staff, Mr. Boudet, and Mr. McLeod, because they were her direct managers, and we had had some conversations about how to best honor her memory. Mary passed away in July after a courageous battle with lung cancer, and truly, in my opinion, was a staple in the lives of the Rams community. And I tell you that sort of from the distance, right? So I wasn't an educator there or didn't, but my children were students there. And she really was a presence, and a positive presence. And she did a lot for that school, both technology-wise, and then she was also the athletic director. So I think that she really touched all points. But I think it would be better if Mr. McLeod and Mr. Boudet sort of further explain. Mr. McLeod came up with all of Mary's accomplishments, not even all. We think a summary of her accomplishments that I think really supports the need to really honor her memory. And so it's my request that we do that. And as I shared with you, I am kicking myself because I misread our policy and didn't look at it again. So there's a 6-month waiting period from the time of the request until the school committee can vote. And I'm kicking myself because I thought it was 6 months from the time the person either passed away or left. So I screwed myself on this. But anyways, so I, from the bottom of my heart, would be honored and sincerely request that we consider renaming that room. Mr. McLeod.
Yes. Do you mind what was that document?
Can I just clarify this? You said renaming? It's not.
Not renaming, it's naming the.
All right, I didn't.
Sorry, and I shared.
Someone else's name.
I shared our policy FF naming school property.
Yeah.
So then it would be a request to put it on the agenda in middle of October for a vote,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to borrow this document because I don't remember everything she's done, but I had lots of assistance, lots of people contributing to this document that knew Mary and worked with Mary. So she served here nearly 23 years, much of that time under Mr. Day's leadership. She was a network administrator, so I'll get into more of what that entailed. She was athletic coordinator for a long time, 2008 to her retirement. The biggest thing is she really brought technology to Holliston Public Schools. I arrived in 2017. I mean, she laid the foundation, and I just inherited everything. So she and Mr. Boudet, I mean, just, and apparently I wasn't here, but Mary spearheaded Holliston's push to become really a tech leader. So I really am impressed with all that. She took us from a local server-based environment to a cloud-based environment, which we are proud to say we're just about there with one more application. We will be there. So she led all of that. And then this huge is she led the first one-to-one program in the middle school. We're now 2 to 12. We're a one-to-one environment. E-rate, that's just a fun part of the job. Mary had the pleasure of doing that process. It's federal funding for technology. Requires a tremendous amount of detail and record keeping. Mary did that from 2008 to 2017. And I know when I walked into my office that first day, I opened up a file cabinet and I saw, gigantic binders for E-rate. Just labeled, organized, all. I said, who did this? I think I asked you, Keith, and that's Mary McNamara. So, and from that day, she was the most organized person I've ever met. And in that job, it is one of the best skills. She was a people person, no doubt about it, but she was tremendously organized and detailed.
And when you talk about E-rate, about halfway through her tenure and working for me, she said, I don't have time to do this anymore, doing these other things, gave it to me, but needless to say, it kind of bounced back. So,
Yeah,
I wouldn't do it the way she wanted me to do it. It's like, you have to do it this way. I'm not doing it that way, so she got it back.
She redesigned this library space, which we're going to show shortly with pictures. The one that we hope the school committee would consider renaming in her honor. It had 3D printers, makerspace materials, robotics. That was her passion. She led the pit crew. This was awesome. She led these students, and you would walk in that room, and these students were busybodies repairing these Chromebooks. They were pumping them out. It was amazing. Grades 6, 7, 8. And she was there fixing them right with them, showing them how to do it. It was super impressive. And then, I mean, this is behind the scenes, but just being responsible for the Wi-Fi and the network for the Woodland campus is a huge responsibility. So Mary had 2,000 devices and 2,000 student devices and 250 staff devices were her responsibility to keep them connected. And then everything else that comes with the job, you name it, we have it. Chromebooks, iPads, desktops, and then all of the digital resources. I mean, I just looked the other day, and we're up to 133 for the district that have data privacy agreements. And much of those belong to Woodland campus and RAMs. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Mr. Bidet.
I just have a couple of little details. Anybody know Mary's middle name?
Actually, I don't.
Mary Winifred
Oh, right.
McNamara, nee Duffy. She came to us from the Westboro schools. We hired her away from there on February 9th of 1998. She was hired by Kathy Dooley, who was the tech director at the time, who then left after a number of years, and that's when it fell into my lap as a temporary move for 9 years. Truthfully, I mean, Mary is one of those people, and if you knew Mary and her tone, we'll say, you know, even before she worked for me, you know, she would come up, and I worked very closely with technology at the time, even when Kathy Dooley was there, and it was a lot of talented people. I mean, you had Mary at the middle school, Chris Mayo up here, and Ann Preddy at the elementary, and it was a great team, which is how we did it without a tech director other than myself for those 9 years, and I give them full credit. But Mary, when she would want something, I would hear, Keith. It's like, okay, what? I mean, if she gave you that motherly tone, and that's the way she was. It was, you know, she would give you the opportunity to kind of find your way, and then at some point, yeah, I'm done letting you find it. Keith, I need this. We need this. We have to do this. You do this. And that's just the way she was. And she gave you the opportunity to do it her way, or told you to do it her way. But no, Mary started, when she was hired here, she actually originally started working in Miller. And part of it is because Adams was under construction at that time. And Mary was a person who, you know, literally birthed the Robert Adams Middle School from a technology perspective. When we hired her, she actually had a teaching license. She had that when she was in Westboro and brought that here, but wasn't doing any teaching here. So outside of Tech Wednesdays, which was an after-school program we had, for teaching staff and again, you know, I'm not saying Dan's minimizing it, but when you think we came from an environment with virtually no computers, the reason I'm here is because I met Kathy Dooley when I was working at Harvard University, and I used to like take old computers from Harvard University. I worked in the budget office, so needless to say, I had access to old resources. I would bring a 2-year-old computer, a truck full of 2-year-old computers, called Kathy and say, hey, Kathy, I got some computers, drive them over here and pass them off to her. So this is the way we got our original technology. It wasn't through the town. A lot of it was through Harvard University. Sorry. But I think it was my 27-cent pension. You know, that was the way that we started technology here. And so when you think about it, the original plans for these buildings, you know, was 4 computers per classroom. We viewed that as, you know, state of the art. And 4, you know, desktop, old, crappy computers. You know, it was state of the art at the time. And when you think of where she came from to expand that into lab space, to expand that into more computers in kids' hands, going through the iPad phase, going through what was those little PCs? It was like smaller than a laptop. And then going to laptops. It's when you think of all those changes that we had to do. And the middle school was always our test ground for whatever reason, whether it had been Mary, whether it had been the other staff there, it was always our test ground because they embraced it. And she led those efforts. And all those changes during her career here, it really brought us from the 20th century into the 21st century, and I can't minimize that. For me personally, I mean, Mary's a friend, somebody I can count on, somebody who, you know, lived down the street from me and would see me sometimes working in my yard and then pull over and chat with me for an hour. So, you know, she's somebody who's missed around here. She's somebody missed in my life personally. And I can't encourage you enough to name this space after her as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, just more about Mary. I mean, Keith touched on this, but and this again, I'm just going to read this because it was contributed by multiple people. So apologies for reading. But Mary was beloved by students, staff, and the Holliston community. She worked tirelessly to make sure everything she did was top-notch and would not have been satisfied with anything less. Her smile and sense of humor brought much-needed relief to any situation, no matter how bleak it was. She is truly sorely missed, and we will be eternally grateful for all of her contributions and what she did to serve students, staff, coworkers, Holliston Public Schools, and the community. Mary's heart was so big, even when staff members had personal technology needs, she found the time to help us outside of the school to make sure even our personal needs were met and that we were happy.
And also, before you show the picture, she and her husband, Bob, were very active in the community as parents, raising and having Rob and Allie come through the schools here, and very involved in athletics. I won't even say them because I'm probably going to screw up which teams they were on, etc. But really just big in the community and St. Mary's, and best damn neighbors you could ever ask for. And this is her work.
Yes, this is the Innovation Lab Makerspace at middle school.
It's a great spot.
It is.
So because we can't do anything with this right now, I'm sending you all an agenda reminder for 6 months from now, so that I'm sending it the last week in September, so that it's on the agenda for the first meeting in October.
Thank you.
And that'll be 6 months from now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for presenting.
And on that happy note, Keith is going to get haunted tonight for sharing that.
FY24 capital request edition, is that the next part?
That is what's next.
Okay. So this was something that since our last school committee meeting, we had attended the finance committee capital, the subcommittee on capital and also on operations. And as part of the capital discussion, Keith and James from the town had updated us on the fact that they had done, worked with a vendor and did a reassessment on the Placentino and Miller roof. And you probably remember there was an allocation of, was it 150,000? 125,000, you know, around the time of the start of the pandemic. Is that accurate? Yes.
The year before, right.
Right, and so subsequent to that, what we saw was an increase in the cost of construction, materials, just the general cost of everything. And so I know Keith has continued to look into those repairs, but that was really more specific to like the Miller or cafeteria part of the shingled roof of that building. Is that correct? Okay. The cost has gone up. That's just simply what's occurred. But James and Keith together, along with a vendor, looking at the roof, doing a more recent assessment. So this was after, right around the time of our last school committee meeting. There were some concerns about not just the Miller side, but also the Placentino side. And there was some economy of scale, or rather savings that could be realized if we addressed both the Placentino and the Miller shingled portion of the roof at the same time. And they're significant, right? So if the vendor is out there working on both of it, we could realize cost savings of as much as
$200,000. The Placentino side was the next one up.
Right.
So by accelerating that by 6 to 9 months, say, the town may realize a savings of $200,000 by doing it at once.
So just to be clear, we would have been requesting a capital request for this in the next year anyway.
Correct.
For Placentino.
Correct, and that's why I wanted to get to kind of the bigger picture of it and explain the why as to why it's coming to you now. And you know, we can change our budget request up until the time of town meeting, but this was based on a recent assessment. And again, there's other components to this roof. This doesn't solve all of our roofing problems there. There's a flat flat Placentino and a flat Miller part, which has like a membrane that they're still looking at, sort of like infrared looking for water intrusion so that they know what the plan is. So is the plan a full replacement or removal of the existing membrane and putting down a new one? Or can you do almost like a rubber membrane liquid put up there? So we're going to be talking about roofs for years to come, but the immediate issue is we can realize a cost savings, between this year and next instead of pushing this program off. And the town seemed interested in supporting us on this, so we came into a finance committee capital meeting where Travis Ahern was present. Finance committee heard this, and they were interested in the idea that we would be realizing this cost savings. So they've seemed very positive about this. But this isn't one of our formal. We haven't voted this yet, right? So that's why we're here for you, in front of you today, and on the agenda it talks about voting. Subsequent to that, we've had our own budget subcommittee meeting on Monday, and we were able to kind of discuss all of this. So it's a request for $757,000, and it would address the Placentino portion of this. And again, what it amounts to is a cost savings of up to $200,000. The other piece that I feel like people should be aware of, like, why not wait until October, and why isn't this a capital request in the fall? And the answer is, we have kids in this building, and it's shingles. You're ripping off shingles into the dumpster. It's loud, it's noisy, it's messy, and we do it during the summer, guys. And if we can recognize the savings, it's worth pursuing. So I guess I want to open it up for discussion, but then we'd also be looking for a vote on this. And just to be specific, I believe Budget Subcommittee voted in favor of an FY24 capital request for $757,000 for repair of the shingled areas of the Placentino roof, where the shingled areas of the Miller cafetorium area were already scheduled for repair in the summer of 2023. From the prior capital allocation in order to address water infiltration. And also, it's an over 25-year-old roof, guys. It's met and exceeded its life expectancy. These are issues we need to address.
This is the original roof.
This is the original roof, and we have not re-roofed. And Keith, is it 27, 28?
Sorry, what?
How old is this?
It was installed in 1997.
Okay.
Building was opened in 98.
$757 for both roofs, or is it just for the Placentino in addition to the money we were already going to spend?
It's a great question. It's in addition to what we already allocated, along with having to actually increase that. It's expensive, but the good part is we do believe that there's a cost savings to be had here, and that we'd be coming back to you next year to address this.
As opposed to asking for nearly $1 million.
So it sounds like the money we'd be saving, it's almost like we're getting the Miller roof for free.
No.
No. Do we have like a report or anything from whoever was reviewing the roof, or?
Not anything written.
Okay.
I'll say, but again, we're on cycle is what I'm saying. Is that,
No, I know we're on cycle. I just want to make sure that we have, reports to back up a request if someone's asking, why are we doing it now? I hear what you're saying. I'm just asking if, our facilities manager in the town has reviewed over it. I'd like to see what their impressions are as well, so.
I don't know if there is a written report from him.
Okay.
Not from him, but to him.
Okay, so if we make this request and it's approved at town meeting, do we have a vendor who is willing to come out and do it?
We have to go out to bid. So.
Okay.
And there is a tight time frame.
Correct, because we have to do it
James
over
and
the
I have
summer.
worked on that. We have any de-shingling of the roof has to happen without students present.
Right.
Has to. The installation of the Placentino roof can't happen during school times.
Right.
Because kids are working underneath it.
Yep.
The cafetorium can happen, I don't care when, it's
What
noisy
about
enough.
ESY? Will that be impacted?
We can work around other doors for ESY. We worked on that.
Right. There's
I mean,
mobility we can
the program's small enough where we can work around it. Because if say we're de-shingling the cafetorium roof, they can just enter through Placentino. But we have ways of working around that.
I guess my only other question would be, and I don't know how much detail you can get into answer this, is our asking for this money taking away from any other requests that we have as well? Or?
No.
Okay.
That's your understanding, right?
That's my impression as well.
And we really heard a lot of positive feedback about addressing this, and also that it's exceeded its life expectancy. Keith, this also includes removal of part of the skylights,
The
correct?
skylights on the
Where there's
Platino
water
side.
infiltration, right? So
Which are, yeah.
over 25-year skylights, and then one of the questions came up was, if you lose that natural light, will it be well lit enough? And Keith had pointed out, since we've moved to LED bulbs, we often find areas very bright, and right within that area is also access to put another light if needed, so we don't think that's going to be a problem. But you know, I am concerned about this roof and like what they've learned about it and other areas that we'll have to address. And then right behind it, folks, is ramps. And then, you know, I do think we should make this move. And that's why, after discussing it at length in Budget Subcommittee, we voted to move this forward to you.
My questions are answered.
And again, these buildings we're keeping. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean,
I know, yeah.
it's not,
Right.
this is
That's
not,
worth the investment.
this is not good money after bad. And that's,
Right.
you know, that's obviously our ongoing challenge with the high school, is
Yeah, and-
which dollar amount's the right one to spend.
And that was going to be my one comment to anybody who might be watching and wondering why we're not dealing with the
Band room door.
Well, we are dealing with that, but,
I mean, in this moment.
right.
And that was just, what I was going to say is that these buildings are not going anywhere. It's just like when you own your house and you have to replace the roof. Now,
Yep.
you have to replace the roof.
And I think, I know I'm slightly jumping back to budget, but that also came up. I mean, we have, Keith and James have ongoing assessments of that high school wall, including someone with a new idea that I think you're finding out more information on.
Yeah, the latest vendor or expert in the area, he has a strategy for taking out a couple of courses of brick at the bottom, supporting it with you know, some, you know, pine studs. And then I just get nervous when you start taking out the bottom two courses of a thing that's, you know, 40 feet high. But taking out a couple of courses, putting in wood, and, more like Jenga. And so, and you know, and puts this flashing in basically as it's supposed to be, restores the brick, puts the weep holes in, and now it works as it's supposed to, which is water that penetrates, goes down, hits the flashing, comes out the weep holes, problem solved. Unless, of course, when you take out the courses of brick, the wall comes down. So, again, you know, there's solutions to that as well, which means we get to see the roof that's 60 years old that we need to repair, and we repair that, and bless you, and then paint the concrete.
But this wouldn't take away from the potential of doing that in the future, it sounds like.
No.
We're continuing to look at
It's
this.
right.
That's even has a potential for a fall capital request, or maybe we'll be back here next spring talking about it. But I do think this is a now project, especially because we could, and I mean, you know where these two buildings are. You're already up there this summer, right? So.
And the thing is that, like I said, with regards to being a shingle roof than a membrane roof, the shingle roof has noise attached to it when you install it. The membrane is a much quieter process.
And the
So-
nails worry me more even than the noise.
Well, exactly. I mean, and you'll never get them all. We know that. Anybody's had the roof replaced, they, you know, that's what the lawnmower's for. But, you know, it's, you know, again, they'll do as good a job as they can. Again, that's what the lawnmower's for. The magnet's still looking at them all.
We have a little dragging magnet. I'll let you borrow it.
Okay,
You can have my magnet.
thank you.
Have a motion for an FY24 capital request in the amount of $750,000 for repair of the shingled areas of the Placentino roof.
Moved by Amanda. Second. Second by Minnie. I'm taking notes on my phone now because my computer's dead. When you closed it, I asked you for it, and you closed it, so I thought that.
I can forward you that motion if that's.
Sorry. There you go.
We can send you the motion.
There you go. Sorry, moved by Amanda, seconded by Minnie. All in favor? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what's the next step with that? You're going back to the finance committee?
Well, FinCom, again, FinCom
Yes.
has
That's
to
what I
go
mean.
forward with their recommendation. We have to do a presentation to the select board by town statute
Right.
for capital.
Yes.
So those things will happen, and we'll go to town meeting.
Half minute, right? Okay.
We got this. And we can put it out to bid and get it done.
Yep.
All right. And newsletter? I'm not on communications.
No,
I
but
assume there's
as,
not
you know,
one.
I do think communications is likely to be able to put a newsletter out in advance of town meeting, make sure we have people who are, again, aware that they should be coming to vote on our operations and capital budget. So I don't have a date for that meeting, but we do, anticipate probably early May.
Great. Okay, and there's some items of information there. Our next meeting is April 27th, and at this time, I would adjourn from open session and entertain a motion to enter executive session to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or conduct collective bargaining sessions or conduct negotiations with non-union personnel.
From which we won't return.
Which we will not return.
Moved by Stacy.
By Stacy?
Second.
Second by Minnie. Roll call vote. Ms. Dworki? Ms. Raffi?
Yes.
Mrs. Semnick?
Yes.
Ms. Bigelow?
Yes.
Ms. Gupta? And
Yes.
myself, yes. Thank you. Thank you to everybody watching. Thank you for everyone who presented. Enjoy your long weekend.
Yay.